Hi, my name's Alison and this is my big sister Suze. Thanks for having us here tonight, guys. It's really great to be here. We're really excited and extremely nervous. It's interesting that the theme for tonight is voice, because while all the words you'll hear from us this evening will come out of my mouth, I guess my sincere hope for this evening is that it's not my voice, but yours, Suze, which makes a lasting impression. Suze and I were born 18 months apart. I'm the younger, of course. And despite being born to the same loving parents, with the same annoying big brother, actually he's really nice, we have led dramatically different lives. We didn't go to the same school, and from the time I was 7 and Suze was 9, we didn't even live in the same house. And this was partly because we're not the same person, and no two people live the same life, even two sisters. It's partly because you, Suze, have an intellectual disability, but it was mostly because you're treated differently because of that disability. Suze wasn't welcome at our school, and there were no options for Suze to live at home with us. But Suze is sitting right here next to me, so I'm not going to talk about you, Suze, so you're not here. You, Suze, are a complex and charming woman, just like me. And just like our brother, I am delighted to be your sister most of the time. You have what the doctors call profound and pervasive intellectual disability, and they sometimes use the word cerebral palsy. You've been like this since you were born, and we have no idea why. Mum has a hunch that it might be due to a fever she had early in her pregnancy with you, but I don't really think that's why. And to me, it doesn't really matter. You are who you are, and you've always been this way. And being your younger sister, it never really occurred to me that you might be anything different. Mum says it was like I always just assumed there was a Suze in every family, and I was surprised when I discovered there wasn't. When we were kids, my brother and I used to be competitive about who could speak your language best. Suze, do you remember? Depending on the circumstance, if you made like a noise or a gesture, Andrew and I would be adept at interpreting it very accurately, and it usually went along the lines of, "Mum, Suze said I can have all her Easter eggs." Or, "Mum, Suze just said she loves me more than she loves you." But now, Suze, when people ask me, I admit that words and sentences are not your vessel of communication. Speech pathologists describe your communication, Suze, which is often loud and clear, as pre-symbolic. You do communicate, but in a way that doesn't depend on the words and the symbols that words are based on. One example is that if you want me near you, instead of patting the chair next to you, which is a gesture that kind of is based on all the symbols that a chair symbolises, you'll just get straight to the point and you'll grab me, usually around the neck. I must admit, Suze, you are refreshingly honest. You tell it like it is, or so to speak. And yet, Suze, in those difficult days when you first moved out of our home and away from our family, we would come to visit regularly. We've come to visit you regularly, of course. And we were always told not to say goodbye when we were leaving, because you knew it meant that we were going. So fast forward to 1994, a great year in a number of ways, and you were due to move into a share house. It's called a group house in the world of disability, nowhere else. And a share house, you and a whole range of other people with disabilities were due to move into these share houses scattered across Canberra. The parents of... You okay? Yep. The parents of all of the people with disabilities that were about to move into these share houses had all received a letter, and it was the same letter, and it said, "Do you want your son/daughter to live with others who are?" And then there was like a list of characteristics. which describe the people that you may or may not want your daughter or son to live with. And there were 3 characteristics on that list. The first one was mobile or immobile. The second one was verbal or non-verbal. And the third one was behavioural or non-behavioural. Now, Mum's friend was in a quandary because her daughter, who was verbal, mobile and non-behavioural, she didn't want her daughter living with anybody who was immobile, non-verbal and behavioural, but that was the only description they had for you, Suze. Unfortunately, it seems that the predominant housemate quality when you have a disability is the amount and the type of support that you need. But if I was to describe you, Suze, if I was to prepare some sort of housemate resume for you, I would no doubt include your touching, your heartwarming and your inspiring characteristics like your beautiful smile, your deep sense of empathy, your complete trustworthiness when it comes to keeping my secrets, your incredible capacity to forgive and forget, especially to forgive your little sister who is hell-bent on tormenting you. And I would definitely include your highly developed ability, Suze, to be in the moment in a way that the Buddha himself, I think, would envy. And that's a nice list, and it gets the point across that you, Suze, are a charming and complex woman, a strong woman who makes a great contribution to my life and the lives of everyone around you. It's the classic story of triumph over adversity. But that would be akin to what Australian comedian Stella Young calls inspiration porn, where I single out your personal positive characteristics and I use only them to describe you, because even if I don't realise it, doing so helps me tolerate living in a world where actually you're hidden, you're excluded and you're discriminated against. Or, Suze, I could describe you according to the birthright of a little sister. That you are sometimes annoying, high maintenance, I can't stand the fact that you're skinnier than me, and you never ever return my calls. But how, Suze, would you describe yourself? What would your voice articulate if it could? That you don't want to be up here and that you want to get off the stage as fast as possible? I hope not. Research says that to hear the voice of a person with severe intellectual disability, it's particularly important to pay attention to the subtleties, the subtle things that you do, Suze. But how do we notice your subtleties when it feels like you are shrouded by a cloak of invisibility sometimes? I found that pushing you around at a large event is often the greatest way to attend something incognito. People are often surprised afterwards when they discover that we were there. They'll say, "Oh, I didn't see you." It's funny, Suze and I, we've started volunteering at the roller derby. I mean, after all, it's all about wheels, not heels. And it's great, they've welcomed us with open arms, we love it. They have suggested to us that you and I, Suze, that we cruise around and try and sell raffle tickets. And I don't know how to break it to them that everyone is so busy avoiding looking at us that we would be quite hard-pressed to sell anything at all. I remember also, Suze, this wonderful wedding we were at a couple of years back. It was a beautiful event at Corroboree Park Hall. The happy couple were both our friends and we had a great day. At the time of the kind of nuptials, the crowd was all packed into the hall and it was jam-packed, and there was only standing room left, but except for the table where we sat, so where we were surrounded by empty chairs. And I don't tell this story to show what a crap bunch of friends we've got, because quite the opposite is true, thanks to our fan club over there on this side. And I also don't think that there's one particular or single story that can tell or explain what was happening in at that wedding that day. It might have just been that I had forgotten to wear deodorant like I usually do, and you had forgotten to tell me like you usually do. But it felt to me that day that we were, Suze, in a black hole, a vortex of invisibility in that room that was otherwise overflowing with love. So, Suze, I think it's time that we gave people permission to look, to really see you, Suze. And I don't mean to look like that 9-year-old girl looked in Civic a couple of months back when you and I were having a coffee and I could hear her just a metre away. Ew, Mum, look at her face. Can you guess what her mum said straight after that, Suze? Don't look. Don't say that. Well, Suze and I choose our battles, and that was not a battle we chose to fight on that particular day. But it was good, in a way. It helped me a month or so later when I was hanging out with our friend David, who has autism, and my 4-year-old said to me, "Mum, why does David make funny noises?" Remembering back to that incident in the Canberra Centre, I was able to say to her, "Well, let's ask David." And together we rephrased respectfully her question. We asked David, and 3 of us together were able to spend a quiet, loving, open moment wondering what David's vocalisations meant. It's okay to look. Is it okay to look? As long as you're looking with genuine openness, curiosity, warmth, and respect. And it's okay to sit alongside us, to sit alongside you, Suze. Because it's not just your subtleties that help me understand your voice. It's also the subtleties of exclusion and inclusion that I hear, Suze, when I sit alongside you. I'll give an example. It's been in sitting alongside you, Suze, that I've discovered the power of ordinariness. People don't need to do big or dramatic things to include you. Just the ordinary things make a difference, like sitting alongside us. Now, I am pleased to report that someone did come and sit with us that day at that wedding. And it helped me to realise something extremely important. That it's not just a person's cognitive functioning or their physical or sensory status that causes them to have a disability, but it's how the world interacts with that. When our friend came to sit with us that day, it was just an ordinary thing that she did, but I don't know about you, Suze, I felt the burden of disability lift from us. And it made me realise that the social model of disability is not just about ramps so that people can access buildings, although they're important. It's not just about braille so that people with a vision impairment can participate, although that's important. It's about being ignored and excluded, or it's about being noticed and included. So, Suze, it's time to get noticed. Now, I'm still not entirely sure how we can collectively, as a community and as the public, hear your voice, Suze, even though looking respectfully and sitting alongside you are good starting points. But it's the perfect time to move on from our paralysis of inaction, where not knowing how means we don't even try. So, again, while I'm not entirely sure how to bring your voice and the voice of all people with intellectual disability into the public sphere, I am delighted that we're giving it a go. So thank you. Now, you guys should have seen the response that I got when I said to a group of our close friends that I thought Sue should give a talk. Everyone looked at me. There was like this silence that kind of hit the room, and everyone looked at me as though I was deluded. I think they might have been thinking, there goes Alison wishing her sister was normal again. But as we prepared this talk, Suze, it was really important to me that dragging you up here was not some sort of tokenistic gimmick, because you are my beloved sister, not some sort of an exhibit at some macabre Victorian sideshow. I believe, Suze, that your voice is vital. And I couldn't sit by anymore while people with profound intellectual disability invisibly inhabit the sidelines. And after all, if you believe in the value of diversity, you can't just sit back and wait for someone else to make it happen. You've got to do something about it. hang on. Well, I've lost the last cue card. So, and my microphone stopped working. So I would like to do something today that I don't think has ever been done before, and I know has never been done by us before. I'd like to set you a challenge, and the challenge isn't big or difficult. It's a simple challenge. I challenge you that by this time tomorrow, you'll have had a conversation with somebody, a conversation that talks about how you can listen, sit alongside, and look respectfully at people with profound intellectual disability. And in doing what she does best, I would like to introduce Suze Procter in her very first public speaking engagement to give us all the space to consider this conversation that we're going to have. Take it away, Suze. All right, we'll follow your lead. Thank you very much for having us. And thanks again for sharing this journey with us.